Hi, everyone. This is Bailey Liu with the Washington State Charter School Association, your host for the Fundraising Learning Series, where I bring in experts to talk about equity driven fundraising practices. Today, I'm so excited to introduce you to my mentor and friend, Nashmeen Moslehuiddin, to talk about major gifts. Nashmeen is currently the Senior Director of Development overseeing major gifts in the Midwest for CARE USA. And CARE works around the globe to save lives, defeat poverty, and achieve social justice with a focus on women and girls. She has been with CARE since 2006 and brings 2 decades of fundraising experience in the US and London. Welcome, Nashmeen. I'm so excited you're here.
Thank you so much, Bailey. And oh my goodness, that was a mouthful, but I am so excited to be here with you. Thank you for having me today.
And as an expert in major gift, would you talk us how you move donor and how you build relationship with donor and through this donor cultivation cycle? And let's start with how and where to find major donors.
Sure, Bailey. Well, I think the identification, part of a cultivation cycle is very, very important. At CARE, we're very lucky. We have a team who's doing research for us. We're constantly looking at peer-to-peer connections. We're constantly looking at who do our board members know, who can they introduce us to, and do your current donors want to make an introduction to someone for you? So those are kind of the first steps we take. I will say one of the things that I found is that just because you do research on a donor and it's showing that they can only do maybe 10,000, and that's not only for some donors, but I found that just because you're looking at a document that says this is their capacity, that may not be true. So just for our viewers who are thinking about, don't look at that document as stopping you. You really kind of need to think outside the box, and we've become really savvy about thinking about a donor's total asset, right? Not just cash, but like what are their multi-assets? I think we are leaving a lot on the table. We're making them the ask of $100,000 via cash, right? So somebody may not want to give up $100,000 of cash in one go. They may say, I have, bonds, I have stocks, I have cryptocurrency, right? Like nothing is the end these days. So yeah, identification is that very first step.
Thank you for clarifying. What metrics and practices do you use to qualify? You mentioned research. And then how do you ensure you include diverse sets of donors?
So, qualification to me, sometimes it's as simple as a phone call, right? So I call up a donor, we get a brand new gift, right? It comes to the door, I call up a donor, and it's kind of like a quick pulse check of how warm or far is the donor from you, right? And this can be a very long, lengthy process. They say it takes up to 7 moves, 7 touches for a donor to call you back once or to even acknowledge that they're getting your calls, your notes, your messages, right? So a lot of my newer donors, for example, are kind of in that qualification stage, at least sometimes 4 to 6 months. And then I kind of decide, do they need to stay in a major gift portfolio? Do they need to go somewhere else? And if I see even a little bit movement with them, I often keep them because I do hope that they would become a major gift donor. So that's kind of how I qualify them. Now, in terms of diverse donors, we are doing more and more. I think all organizations are bad at saying no to money. We take money from whoever, whenever, but I think we are more and more looking at the lens of, is this ethical money, and is this a donor that really stands for CARE's values? Like, do they align with your organization's values? And it's making that hard call that sometimes you have to walk away from money because the donor is not doing right by the communities you're serving or by your organization, right? So we are certainly striving to do that at CARE. Easier said than done, of course, but really, I think once you allow that, it automatically kind of attracts more diverse pool of donors, diverse pool of board members kind of into your organization.
Thank you. And you mentioned earlier that it takes 7 connections or moves to get even a callback, right? What cultivation strategies have worked for you?
I will say it's a combination of things, but I try to be just really personal and genuine in my moves, right? If I'm expecting a donor to open up to me and share about their passions, I do the same from upfront, as vulnerable as I can be. So one of the first things I do is I write a donor a letter and I include a picture of myself, my family. I put notes on the back, right? So from there, I take it to a handwritten note. I do a follow-up phone call. So I have to think sometimes it's a combination of all these things that finally, one donor reached out to me and said, oh, you're really proactive. You've been really, reaching out a lot. And I wanted to just acknowledge that, I am getting your messages. They did not necessarily give more dollars, but they at least acknowledged that, I'm someone new reaching out to them and they're getting my messages. So I would say, yes, I think it's really important to just continue with with a numerous amount of different touches. One thing I very try to quickly do is really hone in on their passion. So do they love education? Are they really passionate about humanitarian aid work? And give them, that helps me kind of steward like the right reports when I talk to them. If something's happening in Afghanistan, if something's happening in Haiti, I can call and say, I know you're interested in the girls in this country. This is what CARE is doing right now. So I very quickly try to kind of hone in on their interests, and that's been really helpful. And I think nothing is a better, more important cultivation move for most donors. It's a face-to-face meeting, and I know that's really hard in the middle of a pandemic, but we've made it work, right? But I do think a face-to-face meeting in a very casual setting. Sometimes I'm not even talking about the organization, but you're really trying to connect with this person at a personal level. And for me, it's all about them gaining my trust. Like if, and vice versa, right? Like if we can trust each other, that kind of builds our future for a really good two-way communication.
Absolutely. And I love that you are talking about trust, because you absolutely need to have a relationship and a trust before you can invite them to make an investment, right? And so many people get nervous when it comes to making an ask. So how do you prepare for an ask? And what readiness indicators do you look for?
I've been in the industry, what, like over 20 years between CARE and some other organizations. But yeah, the ask is always nerve-wracking in many ways. But I will say with time, it does get easier. But I feel like you cannot be prepared enough, right? Like I feel like fundraisers are actors, actresses in some way, because we put on our Hollywood star hat. And when we're making that ask, we just have to get through it. But I really like to think that I've really prepared a donor for an ask. So when I'm at their home, or even if it's on the phone, there should be no surprises that I'm asking them for X dollar gift to the organization. So I really like to support, what I'm asking them for with a proposal. Sometimes we're setting up conversations with a program expert, right? They've told us they want to invest in girls' education. Come speak with our director of girls' education at CARE. We set up those meetings. We have calls with our country offices. They've read through the proposal. I've asked them, do you have questions? And maybe we've even loosely talked about an investment in the future. But usually I like to, if I can help it, I would like to do my ask in person while I'm at their coffee table. And we say, we've been discussing this now for 2 months. Bailey, would you like to invest X dollars with CARE today? And I kind of leave it as simple as that. And I stop there. I try not to go on because it's just pausing enough for them to think about if they're going to say yes or no, or maybe.
Yeah, that's really helpful. You have really prepared us to like stop and pause, let people think. That trust you build help make that ask even stronger, right? They said yes. How do you steward the donors and their gifts?
I think, honestly, to me, this is the most critical and important stage, in my opinion, in the donor cultivation cycle, because truly this is where you can kind of make and break, right? I do think when you get a yes, great, we have all the reason to celebrate, but that year is going to go quickly, right? And would you have gone a year without engaging this donor or stewarding this donor, and then you're again asking them for 100, or maybe you're asking them for $200,000 this year? So this is an opportunity for you to really get to know your donor and say, I'm going to send you full reports. Can we connect 2 times? I'm going to come and visit you in the suburbs and let's go have lunch together, right? And again, I focus sometimes very often on not necessarily talking about CARE. This is truly a personal relationship that we're building on. And of course, I'm going to insert my updates and what is happening at care and what impact are their dollars making. So I try to give really good reports on how their dollars are having an impact. As critical as it is to create a cultivation and an ask plan for your donor, have your stewardship plan ready. And I'll add, I like to take my thank yous a little bit over the top. So I call donors any level of giving. If there's someone I'm working with, I thank them. And then I also do a handwritten note. And when appropriate, we get our leadership involved, right? So sometimes it makes sense for a board member to thank a donor. Sometimes it makes sense for your CEO or your COO to thank a donor. So pull in all those leadership, all those resources to really make the donor feel like, gosh, they can't walk away from this great organization because we will take really good care of you.
Thank you so much for walking us through the donor cultivation cycle and pausing at each stage. It's been very insightful.
Thank you so much, Bailey. This was such a pleasure. It's just absolutely wonderful.